In the year 1519, a Spanish conquistador named Hernán Cortés landed on the shores of Mexico with 600 soldiers, 11 ships, and an objective that every military strategist of his era would have called impossible. He intended to conquer the Aztec Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the known world, a civilization of millions, fortified by centuries of military tradition, defended by warriors who had never been defeated on their home soil. His men knew the odds. They had made the journey across the ocean with their eyes open, but now that they stood on foreign ground, surrounded by an alien landscape, with the full weight of what they had come to do pressing down on them, nervous fear began to move through the ranks like a tide. Some men whispered about turning back. Others calculated the distance to the ships, the route home, the relative safety of retreat. Size. The fallback option existed, and as long as it existed, it divided their minds. It gave fear somewhere to live. It kept one part of every soldier's attention fixed on the possibility of leaving rather than fully committed to the reality of staying and fighting. Cortés understood something about human psychology that most leaders never grasp. He understood that the most dangerous enemy his army faced was not the Aztec warriors waiting for them inland. It was the divided mind, the part of you that is always calculating the exit, the part that whispers about retreat when the going gets hard, the part that keeps you half committed, half present, half invested in the mission, and half invested in the escape route. And he understood that as long as the ships sat in the harbor behind them, that divided mind would never fully close. So he gave the order that changed everything. He burned the ships. Every single one of them, 11 ships, the only means of return, gone. And in the smoke and the ash of those burning vessels, something happened to those 600 men that no speech, no strategy, and no amount of leadership could have produced on its own. They became fully committed, not because they were braver than before, not because the odds had changed, not because the enemy had weakened or the mission had become easier, but because retreat had ceased to be an option. The only direction left was forward. And when forward is the only direction available to you, you find resources within yourself that you never knew existed. You think more creatively. You fight more ferociously. You problem solve with an urgency and ingenuity that comfort and safety simply cannot produce. You become, in the truest sense of the word, fully alive to the challenge in front of you. Cortés and his men went on to accomplish what every expert had called impossible. And the burning of the boats was not a footnote to that achievement. It was its foundation. That story is more than 2,000 years old in its spirit, even if its specific details belong to the 16th century. Because the principle at its heart, the principle that full commitment produces extraordinary results while divided commitment produces ordinary ones, is as true today as it was on that beach in Mexico. It is true in your business. It is true in your relationships. It is true in your creative work. It is true in every area of your life where you are holding back, hedging your bets, keeping one foot in and one foot out, maintaining the fallback option just in case, and wondering why the results you are getting do not match the potential you know you carry. The boats are still in the harbor. That is the problem. And until you are willing to burn them, you will never fully discover what you are capable of. Let us talk honestly about what fallback options actually do to us, because on the surface they seem reasonable, even wise. Having a backup plan sounds like prudence. Keeping your options open sounds like intelligence. Maintaining an exit strategy sounds like maturity. We are taught from an early age that smart people have contingency plans, that the prepared person always has somewhere to go if plan A does not work out. And there is a version of this that is genuinely sensible. We are not talking about reckless abandon, about burning your savings account or destroying your safety net without a plan. We are talking about something more subtle and more psychologically precise than that. We are talking about the specific, insidious way that the availability of a fallback option changes your relationship to your primary commitment. The way it quietly, invisibly, but consistently reduces the intensity, creativity, urgency, and ferocity with which you pursue the thing you say you most want. Here is what the research on commitment and motivation tells us. When human beings have an escape route, they use it. Not always consciously, not always dramatically, but the awareness of an exit changes the way we engage with the challenge in front of us. It reduces what psychologists call cognitive commitment, the degree to which all of our mental and emotional resources are oriented toward a single objective. And reduced cognitive commitment produces reduced performance, not because we are less talented or less capable, but because we are less fully deployed. We are running at 60 or 70% of our capacity while telling ourselves we are giving everything we have. The fallback option is the tax on our commitment, and most people are paying that tax every single day without knowing it. Think about the last time you started something with genuine, full-blooded commitment and no option to retreat. Maybe it was a performance deadline that could not move. Maybe it was a public commitment you made in front of people whose opinion mattered deeply to you. Maybe it was a financial investment that meant there was no sensible option but to make it work. Think about how you showed up in that situation. Think about the creativity you accessed, the energy you brought, the problems you solved, the obstacles you moved through. Now compare that to how you show up for the goals and dreams that have a soft deadline, a quiet fallback, an unspoken option to quit if it gets too hard. The difference is not a difference in your ability, it is a difference in your commitment. And commitment is not a feeling that arrives when conditions are perfect. It is a choice that you make structural, that you enforce through the design of your circumstances, that you build into the architecture of how you pursue the things that matter most to you. This is what burning the boats means in practical modern terms. It does not mean destroying your financial security or burning bridges with the people in your life. It means making a commitment so public, so structural, so difficult to reverse that the psychological weight of following through becomes greater than the psychological weight of quitting. It means designing the circumstances of your pursuit in such a way that the path of least resistance runs toward your goal rather than away from it. It means removing deliberately and strategically the comfortable options that your future self will reach for in the moments when the work is hard and the results are not yet visible and the voice of doubt is loudest. Let us make this concrete, because the principle of burning the boats is useless if it remains abstract. How do you actually do this in your real life, with your real goals, your real fears, and your real circumstances? There are several ways, and each of them is a different form of the same fundamental act, which is the act of raising the cost of retreat to the point where moving forward becomes the easier choice. The first and most powerful way to burn the boats is through public commitment. When you declare your intention privately, in the silence of your own mind, the cost of abandoning it is almost zero. Nobody knows. Nobody is watching. Nobody will be disappointed. Your internal resistance to quitting is the only thing standing between you and retreat. But when you declare your intention publicly, in front of people whose respect and belief matter to you, the cost of abandonment rises dramatically. Now there are witnesses. Now there are people who will ask how it is going. Now there is a social reality to your commitment that makes quitting not just a private decision, but a public one. And human beings, wired as we are for social belonging and reputation, will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid the social consequence of publicly failing to follow through. This is not manipulation. This is working intelligently with your own psychology. It is understanding that willpower and private intention are weak levers for sustained behavioral change, and that social commitment and public accountability are far stronger ones. Tell people about your goal, post about it, announce it, hire the coach, book the class, sign the contract, pay the deposit. Each of these actions is a boat in the harbor that you are choosing to light on fire. Each of them raises the cost of not following through. Each of them tips the psychological scales a little further in the direction of action and a little further away from the comfortable, invisible retreat that your fear will inevitably try to negotiate when things get hard. The second way to burn the boats is through financial commitment. Money is one of the most powerful behavior change tools available to human beings. Not because it is crass, but because it is concrete. When you have paid for something, when real resources have been committed, the sunk cost creates a powerful psychological pull toward following through. This is why people who invest in a gym membership they actually pay for tend to go more than those who use a free one. This is why people who pay a coach tend to do the work more consistently than those who read free advice. This is why entrepreneurs who invest their own savings in a business work harder than those who are playing with other people's money. The financial commitment is not just a transaction, it is a boat in the harbor, and every dollar you invest in your commitment is smoke rising from the hull of a vessel you have chosen not to retreat on. The third way to burn the boats is through the elimination of alternatives. This is perhaps the most psychologically precise form of the principle, and it is the one that requires the most courage, because it asks you not just to commit to your path, but to actively close the doors to the other ones. The person who keeps their old job application active while starting a business has not fully burned the boats. The person who maintains the emotionally comfortable but growth-stunting friendship while claiming to be committed to their personal development has not fully burned the boats. The person who keeps the old habit within reach while claiming to be building the new one has not fully burned the boats. Burning the boats means closing the doors, not out of recklessness or rigidity, but out of the clear-eyed understanding that open doors are not neutral. They drain energy. They split attention. They provide the escape route that your resistance will use the moment the path forward becomes genuinely difficult. There is a psychological phenomenon called the paradox of choice, documented by researcher Barry Schwartz, which shows that the more options people have, the less satisfied they are with the choices they make, and the more difficult they find it to commit fully to any of them. We think that more options means more freedom, but what the research consistently shows is that more options often means more paralysis, more second guessing, and less full-blooded investment in any single path. Burning the boats is the deliberate reduction of your options to the one that matters most. And in that reduction, paradoxically, you find a freedom and a clarity and a power that the person with every door still open never experiences. Now let us address the fear, because it is real and it deserves to be taken seriously. The idea of eliminating fallback options is terrifying to most people, and not without reason. We live in an uncertain world. Things do not always go as planned. Markets shift, plans fail, relationships end, health fails. The unexpected arrives without warning, and it is not always kind. Having options, having flexibility, having the ability to pivot when things go wrong, all of this feels like wisdom in a world where so much is outside our control. And there is genuine wisdom in it. We are not arguing that you should be reckless. We are not arguing that you should destroy every safety net and leap blindly into the void with no preparation and no resources. What we are arguing is something more nuanced and more powerful than that. We are arguing that there is a crucial difference between practical preparation and psychological escape routing. Practical preparation means you have thought through the contingencies. You have built a financial buffer. You have developed transferable skills. You have relationships you can lean on. Psychological escape routing means you are holding on to those preparations, not as a foundation to build from, but as a door to run through the moment things get difficult. One is wisdom, the other is a tax on your commitment, and only you can honestly tell which one you are doing. The question to ask yourself is not whether you have a safety net. The question is whether the safety net is quietly undermining your willingness to walk the tightrope. Because a safety net that makes you more willing to attempt the crossing is an asset. A safety net that makes you less committed to making the crossing work is a liability. The same resource, the same backstop, can be either of these things, depending entirely on how you relate to it psychologically. And the person who burns the boats does not necessarily dismantle their safety net. They simply change their relationship to it. They stop looking at it as the exit and start treating it as the foundation. They stop using it as a reason not to commit fully and start using it as the ground level security that frees them to commit without the paralyzing terror of absolute ruin. This distinction matters enormously in practice because the goal is not to destroy your life in pursuit of your dreams. The goal is to bring your whole self to the pursuit of your dreams, to stop the quiet hedging and half-committed effort that keeps you safe from failure, but also safe from the extraordinary results that full commitment alone can produce. The person who burns the boats is not the person who has nothing left to lose. They are the person who has decided that what they are moving toward matters more to them than the comfort of being able to retreat. That is a value statement. That is an identity statement. That is the declaration of a person who has looked honestly at their life and decided that the version of themselves they are capable of becoming is worth the full cost of becoming it. Let us also speak about what burning the boats requires of you in the moments after the commitment is made, because the burning of the ships did not instantly make Cortés's soldiers into fearless warriors. It made them committed ones. And commitment is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act in spite of it. In the days and weeks and months after you make the commitment that burns your fallback options, fear will still come. Doubt will still visit. There will be mornings when the path forward looks impossibly hard and the memory of the comfort you gave up feels sharp and recent. This is not a sign that you made the wrong choice. It is a sign that you made a real one. Easy choices do not produce this kind of discomfort. Only the choices that actually matter, the ones that reach into the center of who you are and demand something real from you, produce this quality of resistance. On those mornings, the burning of the boats is not behind you. It is in front of you. It is the choice you make again, to keep moving forward, to bring the fullness of your capability to the challenge, to refuse the retreat that is no longer structurally available to you, even when it still calls to you emotionally. Because here is the thing about eliminating fallback options. It does not eliminate the desire to fall back. It eliminates the structural ease of it. And that elimination, day after day, forces you to develop something that no comfortable life can ever give you. It forces you to develop the deep, forged in fire confidence that comes from discovering through the actual lived experience of having no exit that you are more capable than you knew, that you are more resilient than you believed, that the resources you needed were inside you the entire time, waiting only for circumstances desperate enough to require their full deployment. That is the ultimate gift of burning the boats. Not just the achievement it makes possible, though the achievement matters. Not just the result, though the result is real. The ultimate gift is the person you become in the process. The person who has stood at the edge with no way back and found a way forward. The person who has felt the full weight of genuine commitment and chosen to carry it anyway. The person who has discovered through the crucible of their own courageous irreversibility that they are genuinely, lastingly, unshakably capable. That person is who you have always been beneath the hedging and the half commitment and the quietly maintained escape routes. That person has been waiting for you to create the conditions that demand their full emergence. The boats are in the harbor. The match is in your hand. The question is not whether you are capable of extraordinary things. The question is whether you are willing to make the commitment that will finally prove it to you. Light the match. Burn the boats. Move forward. There is only forward now. And forward, it turns out, is exactly where everything you have ever wanted has been waiting for you all along. There is one more dimension of this principle that deserves to be explored before we close, and it is perhaps the one that lives closest to the bone of real human experience. We have talked about burning the boats in the context of goals and ambitions and professional pursuits. But the boats we are most reluctant to burn are often not the practical ones. They are the emotional ones, the relationships we have outgrown but cannot let go of because the familiar is more comfortable than the unknown. The identity we have been carrying for decades that no longer fits who we are becoming, but still feels safer than stepping into a new self-definition. The story we have been telling ourselves about what we are capable of, a story built from old evidence, old failures, old messages received in childhood from people who did not fully see us, a story that is factually obsolete but emotionally alive, that we return to again and again because it is ours, and because it is known, and because the alternative requires us to become someone we have never been before. These are the boats that most need to be burned, and they are the hardest ones to light. Because setting fire to a physical ship is an act of the body. Setting fire to a limiting identity, a comfortable smallness, a familiar story of your own inadequacy, that is an act of the soul. It requires you to grieve the version of yourself you have been, to sit with the discomfort of not yet knowing who you are becoming, to tolerate the gap between who you were and who you will be, a gap that can feel like emptiness but is actually possibility waiting to be filled. The people who make the most extraordinary transformations in their lives are almost always people who burned these deeper boats, who said goodbye to the story that they were not enough, who released the identity of the person who always plays it safe, who walked away from the self-concept built on other people's limited perception of their potential, who chose, at some decisive moment, to stop living inside the boundaries drawn by their past and to start living in the open territory of who they were genuinely capable of becoming. That choice is available to you right now, not eventually, not when you feel ready, not when the fear goes away or the conditions become perfect or the universe sends a clear enough sign. Right now, in this moment. You can decide that the story you have been telling about yourself is finished. You can decide that the boats of your old limitations are burning on the shore behind you. You can decide that the only direction that matters now is forward, into the life you are capable of, into the person you were always meant to become. The Spanish soldiers on that Mexican beach did not know they were about to accomplish something that history would remember for 500 years. They only knew that the ships were gone and the only sensible thing left to do was fight with everything they had. You do not need to know how your story ends. You do not need certainty about the outcome or guarantees about the future. You only need to make the commitment that turns your full self toward what matters most. You only need to burn the boats that are keeping you anchored to who you were instead of sailing toward who you are capable of being. Light the match. Burn the boats. Move forward. There is only forward now. And forward, it turns out, is exactly where everything you have ever wanted has been waiting for you all along. And if you need one final piece of evidence that this is true, consider the people in your own life whose stories have moved you most deeply, not the people who played it safe and kept every option open and never risked anything they could not afford to lose. The people whose stories genuinely stir something in you are almost always the ones who committed completely, who stepped off the edge without a guaranteed landing, who chose the mission over the comfort of retreat, who burned something, gave something up, released something they were holding on to in order to move fully into the life they were called to live. Those stories move us because they mirror something we recognize in ourselves, a longing for that kind of commitment, a hunger for that kind of wholeness, a deep, inarticulate knowing that we too are capable of that quality of aliveness if only we are willing to pay the price of admission. The price is the boats, the price is the fallback, the price is the comfortable story, the open exit, the quiet hedge that keeps you safe from failure and equally safe from the extraordinary life that full commitment alone can produce. Pay the price. It is the best investment you will ever make. Not in something outside yourself, but in the fullest, most courageous, most completely alive version of who you already are. Light the match. Burn the boats. Move forward with everything you have. There is only forward now. And forward, it turns out, is exactly where everything you have ever wanted has been waiting patiently, faithfully, and with absolute certainty for you all along.